All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're so glad that you're able to join us today. My name is Kimberly Leonard and I will be your moderator. I have here with me today Gabe Hamda, who's going to be presenting to us about your professional portfolio and how it tells your story in 3 dimensions. So today's presentation, we really intend to be a conversation. So Gabe and I are going to be speaking about what he has learned about this topic. We also want to hear what you've learned. Be free to share your experience with us, to ask us questions, and we would love to hear from you throughout the presentation. So you can participate in chat, or you're welcome to speak up at an appropriate time and ask a question as well. So with that, Gabe, we'd love to hear a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you interested in this topic.
Kimberly, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you and to share with our friendly guest here. My name is Gabe Hamda. I consider myself a person dedicated to creating peace and creating jobs. Peace and jobs. So that's I consider myself a person who is a job creator and a peace activist. So I think I said enough. So what got me interested in this topic is I really want to see people be successful in their career. So I consider this topic portfolio development or development of portfolio as a career booster. So this will be a booster to one's career, and I want to tell the story of how to make it happen.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I think we all know we can benefit from being able to advance our career at any point, right? There's always room for growth.
Yes.
All right, well, let's go ahead and go to our next slide here. So Gabe, could you tell us a little bit about your personal mission statement, as well as kind of lead us into what is this idea you speak of about your story?
All right. So I think what I want to do is, as we get into this presentation, what I like, our audience participants to think of the best way to tell your story, right? So the question I want you to respond to, actually, you can do this in the chat, is your story credible when you tell it or when others tell your story? So should you be telling your story, or is it better when others tell your story? So I like to invite everyone to kind of put in chat your response, the best way your story can be told. You have a story to tell. What's the best way to tell it? Is it when you tell it, or is it when others tell on your behalf? So perhaps, if there is anyone who wants to kind of speak, I'll be happy to allow that to happen, and I'll give my remarks. So Kimberly, if you can maybe ask, the response from the audience, that would be fantastic, just to get everyone thinking about this. Basically, this is a question I want you to be thinking about. It is my story. How best to tell my story? Anyone who wants to share? And then I'll give my remarks.
Jody Ann, would you like to share? I see that you commented both, but you had a thought about if you had to choose.
Yes, so for me, it depends on the situation. If it's when someone is making a referral, I like to let them tell it, but usually, well, yeah, I like to let them tell it, but if it's where I have an opportunity, or there's an opportunity presented to really showcase what I do and how I do it, then I'd be the best person for the job. So it depends on the situation.
Anybody else? Okay, let me kind of, in the interest of time, let me just go ahead and share basically, I'm in agreement with Jody Ann. There is a place for you to tell your story. And also there is an opportunity for others to tell your story. So by that, I mean about, telling your story, it's important you tell your story, because when you tell your story, you can shape what you want people to think about your story. You can shape how you want them to feel. For example, let's say, you are taking some computer classes, or you are taking some, public speaking classes, or training classes, or e-learning development, or application development, whatever, let's say those are the skills you have, and you want to tell a story. And it may go something like this. When I took my computer programming class, I did not wait until the class was over. I was able to go get a gig so that I can apply my skills. So while I was taking the class, I was practicing. So that story tells people that you are very diligent in the learning process, that you are not just kind of listening to lectures and going out and adding to your resume and telling people to hire you. Instead, you practice while you are taking the class. And by the way, that is my story. I took an e-learning training class at Florida State when I pursued my graduate studies. And I was probably the least qualified person because I did not understand a lot of things happening in the class. But I was able to go across campus. There is a professor I know, he's a sociology professor, and he traveled a lot to Washington, D.C. And so I told him, hey, when you travel to Washington, D.C., what if I develop your courses in e-learning so that your students will be learning while you are away? He said, what an idea. And guess what? I was able to make 5 times my tuition in doing this gig for the professor. In the end, not only did I have the skills, I had the practice. I have the practical industry experience when I was done with the course. So telling that story about myself, about the fact I was able to get a gig while taking the course, what that will do is it will make, kind of helps people understand, what to think about my learning, what to think of my experience. So that's kind of the reason for telling your own story. Now, you also want others to tell your story to make it believable. For example, things like, I may say all these wonderful things about me, but it may not tell about my work ethic. So if someone is talking about me, if they say, you know what, Gabe is really hardworking, he's very curious, he attends to details. So those testimonies add to my believability, okay? So that kind of adds a dimension. So you want people to tell your story, and you also want to tell your story. So those are the things. So I want you to be thinking about how to tell your skill story. You want an employer to believe in you and hire you, or you want a client to hire you for a gig. So how do you make your story believable is what this is about. Kimberly, back to you.
Thanks, Gabe. I kind of want to throw a bonus question at you, because as you were describing your experience going to that professor and offering that e-learning tool, I think that's something that so many of us have, these unique talents and great ideas, but we don't always know that we have them. So what would be your advice to everyone on this call? How do we know what parts of our story to tell, or how do we identify our own strengths? Do you have any advice on that?
Great question, great bonus question. So how do we, now let me kind of maybe address it one way and then you can add to it. So, I think one thing I learned about myself is, despite my enthusiasm on certain subjects, I come with a lot of imperfections. So, some people have a hard time because they don't have it all together. They are not perfect. They are not fluent in it. They are not proficient. So that holds them back. So my approach and my advice, if you are imperfect, I'll tell you what, that makes it unique. I can say, you know what? I know how to design a program, and I rely on others for it to look fantastic. So if you don't have it together, you just maybe highlight what you're good at. I think that makes you believable. And the people I'm talking to are imperfect. And the more imperfections I can show them, it makes me relatable. Mm-hmm. And that's the situation they are in. So that's kind of my approach. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. If I make a mistakes, there is a word I use. I say, oops, I repent, I apologize. So Kimberly, so how does that sound? Is that so you can add maybe your own because you have experience as well?
Yes, well, we all have been in an interview where we've been asked to share our strengths and then our weaknesses. I think what you're speaking to is something that we all want to see. And especially in terms of, we're talking about presenting a portfolio and you're really trying to put your best foot forward. But I think it's such a good reminder that it's okay to be human and it's okay to acknowledge the places where we need others to fill in our gaps. That's a great way to, like you said, make yourself relatable and really just more desirable in that way because you're a real person. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I believe we would like to hear from you, Gabe, about these 3 dimensions. Tell us about what are the 3 dimensions of our portfolio that tell our story.
Okay, so we are in the business of telling our story. And so I want to just get straight to the, the 3 levels or the 3 ways you can tell your story. One is, of course, your profile or your resume. So I'll just say one thing, so by having your profile or your resume, this is you telling your story, highlighting the skills you have, highlighting who you work for, highlighting, the skill sets and all kinds of things, right? So the thing about it, to go back to where about continuous improvement, is resume is, sometimes you can have a resume from 2 years ago or 3 years ago and you have acquired new skills. So it is to update that, to continue to fine tune, improve your resume or your profiles. Most people have a LinkedIn account, is to kind of continue to fine tune what you are about. So that's one way, one level, one dimension of telling your story. Kind of the heart of this presentation is a sample of your work is really what we mean by portfolio. So you have done work. Like Kimberly, you have developed quite a few e-learning programs, courses, and I have written quite a few articles. Mo has done a lot of research. And actually, I know Ramya developed a concept paper recently. So it is putting a sample of your work up there at the portfolio side, which is the heart of what we're talking about. Whatever you've done, clean it up, put it up there, okay? And the third is kind of putting your style into it. So there may be, let's say if we're talking about computer programming, application development that you've developed and others, so you put a little bit of your style on it. So I think that's kind of what makes us stand out, your style. And let's say you may be fantastic in, visual design. So it's kind of putting all of that into it. Or maybe you are fantastic in analysis. So maybe you put some analytical components in it. So it's kind of putting your style on what you do so that it doesn't look like somebody else's. So a lot of people who ask, permission, who want to fit in, who cares for fitting in? So, I guess I'm talking about a little bit of, rebellion in the sense of, see if you stand out, if yours is a little different, okay? Whether it's your resume, your portfolio, or the sample of your work stands out. So those are the 3 dimensions: your resume, sample of your work, and adding your particular style to the portfolio you put out.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to hear from folks on the call if anyone has done something creative in the past, or maybe you're doing it now, something that you've presented as part of a portfolio, or you've brought to a job interview, or created for something in classes. What are some ideas? Maybe Gabe, you have one as well, something that you would say is unique to your portfolio.
So let me pick on one of our attendees, our hostess, Ramya. So last month, we did a presentation, right? And so she kind of added her style. So she added her angle to it. So Ramya, do you mind sharing with us what the topic was and the angle you added, given you come from an international development background? So hey, it doesn't always have to be my story. It can be somebody else's story. So she added her style to it. So Ramya, I'm going to give you a minute. A minute is a long time. Maybe 10
Sure,
seconds.
sure. So the topic or the overall topic was AI and how it can improve everyday life. From what I remember, one of the speakers talked about AI and data analytics. Another speaker talked about AI and healthcare. I talked about AI and its role in global development. Essentially, it was about the pros and cons of what AI is going to do to developing countries and to essentially any projects that involve development. And yeah, we just saw a lot of pros, but also lots of cons, and that AI can actually end up invading privacy and actually stunting economic growth. So yeah, that's what I talked about.
Wonderful. Ramya, I can't wait. I look forward to, I think you did a concept paper on it, on artificial intelligence and global development. And, hey, that becomes part of your portfolio. Now, let me kind of maybe wrap it up with my own example. Early on, I introduced you as a person dedicated to job creation and creating peace, right? So every week I write articles on these two topics. And I have, I write articles. I'm a regular user of Google Docs. So Google, be blessed. So, why not? They have been very kind to me. So I use Google Docs, and I just kind of have a place, articles I've written for many months and years back on different topics. So I have one on peace, and the theme is peace begins with me, and my audience is just, the global audience. Sometimes I do it, most of the time I do it in English, and also I do it in Amharic, which is an Ethiopian language I speak. So I speak to two audiences, and on peace. And also I write one on career, career improvement, career advancement, since, I'm in the business of job creation. So all of these are available. And when I'm talking to someone who may be interested in the work, in either collaborating, either getting them as a volunteer or funding our program, I just send them one of the, one of the portfolio items I have accumulated. So it's kind of from where you are. And sometimes when I send it to people send me feedback, and they said, hey, have you considered this? And guess what? I use it to make it even better. Kimberly, I send it to you because you are the English teacher, and you edit for me, and it looks more fantastic. So if it's not perfect, it's going to be okay.
Right. Wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So what are some tips you can give us for actually putting together? I think we've talked a little bit about the why. Is there anything more you wanted to say about why we create these portfolios?
Kimberly, the why question, in this presentation, we are addressing the what of portfolio development, the why of portfolio development, and the how. And so the how is the most important question. I think I just can say the why question is the most important question in having a conversation with someone. When people ask me why, it really opens me up. And you can always succeed with the why question. My least favorite question is the how question. I said, you figure out how you want to do it. You don't want to be a copy of me. So this is one question that I really, really, really I feel I care about. With that said, the why of portfolio development. Okay. One is, it shows your ability to apply knowledge and skills. So in other words, anyone can say, I know application development. I know how to develop e-learning. I know public speaking. But this is where you show, okay? If you say you are the best public speaker, and if you have a YouTube, that shows that, and you say you are, the funniest person, you want people to hire you as a comedian, it's a place you show your skills. You are not talking about it, okay? Another why is it shows the industry you worked in. Let's say you worked in airline. So if you said, hey, I was a flight attendant, for Delta Airlines, it shows your, experience. Or, you work in the Ministry of Health, it shows industry experience. So I think that's kind of another reason. Also, the obvious thing, it tells your story, by having a sample of work that you have tells so much. People can read into it. Okay. There are times when I ask people, why did you hire me? And then they give me reasons I never even thought of. So there are things people read that you have not even intended. Okay. Now, it also creates a positive impression. So I think we recently hired someone, Kimberly, you know who that person is, and I saw their portfolio. There is just a lot of images there and, where they have been, and we just want to hire them. So sometimes people can look at your portfolio without even hearing from you. They want to work with you. Creates a positive impression. Okay, last but not least, it makes that emotional connection. So there may be something, with that person, and let's say you are, I keep talking about peace, and there may be someone who's really about that. And so kind of makes an emotional connection with the audience. So by you bringing out your story, bringing out your portfolio, it may trigger something in that audience. And that in that audience creates a connection. I remember being in New York last month, and I'm a Florida State fan, Seminole. And I was just walking into a store and I saw this guy, in a place where there aren't that many Seminoles with a Seminole jersey and, trying to talk to a stranger. It's a connection. The guy said, do I know you? It's kind of strange. But, when people see something there, it connects with whatever they have. So you are looking for those opportunities. For that reason, portfolios kind of have far-reaching ramification for your career and for your goal.
That makes sense. I think especially in this time that we're in, where so many job opportunities are completely online, things are remote, being able to have that presence that looks more than just a black and white resume really can create that impression that we really need. We need to be able to make that impression before we even meet someone in person a lot of times.
Yes. Kimberly, the one point I just want to point out, if this sounds like a tool for a job search, it's more than a job search. Many of you are not looking for work, but maybe you are looking for a volunteer for your cause or someone to join your team. So this may be, believe it or not, we are in a talent war. All organizations are looking for the best talent, okay? So your portfolio may attract amazing people to join your team as volunteers or as employees or as colleagues or as business partners. So I remember, Kimberly, when you and I connected several months ago, there were two magic words. One, e-learning. Two, teacher. Guess what? We're looking for someone with e-learning aptitude and someone, my own background, I grew up, my first job was a school teacher, and I have a high regard for educators. So it just, it attracts the right people to use, not only about looking for work.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that and expanding those applications.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So here we are at the how. So please share with us your tips for how to create a portfolio.
Kimberly, the first thing I want to say is, I assume every one of you know. I did not tell you something you did not know. This is something you know. So I just want to begin from a position that each one of you attending this know how to create portfolio. That's where I begin. So I'm not talking to someone who doesn't know what they are doing. I'm talking to every one of you, you know how to do it. And I'm here to encourage you to just do it. As Nike said, Nike and I are cousins, right? Just do what you know how to do, right? So that's kind of the premise. So I'm not telling people who don't know how to do it. Every one of you have done stuff. So it's just gonna showcase what you got, okay? So the couple of tips I have is, I think, I want to emphasize the point about standing out. I think a lot of people have a compliance freeze. Okay, I want this to be just right, for the professor. I want this to be just right for my employer. I want this to be just right for my client. Guess what? Let it stand out. No fear. So another tip there is, look online. Google is my best friend. Whenever, something comes up, I always Google, always look out there, examples of portfolios, and see what you can learn from other people. It doesn't necessarily mean you copy them, but it gives you an idea. Okay. And I would say my most important advice is continuous improvement. Begin somewhere. I recently wrote a book on, become what you say. My central message: perfection is the enemy of good. People who are perfectionists, it's not good for your health. It's not good for your career. Put it out there and tweak it and enhance it. Continuous improvement. So I'm really big on this subject. When people say, oh, I just want to get it right. Oh, I just want to perfect it. Oh, I just want to do analyze and paralyze. And I say, you know what? Stop the paralysis, analysis, put it out there and let the air touch it. We let people see it, let people laugh at it, and then tweak it and make it better. So that's kind of summing up my tips.
Wonderful. I think that's such a good reminder. I have the privilege of working with Gabe every day, and every day he reminds me to not be afraid to just try something, just put it out there. And I do learn a lot quicker when I take those opportunities to just see what happens and get that feedback, because until it's out there where someone can look at it, they can't give me their thoughts. So I've benefited from that advice. So thank you, Gabe.
For acting on it. So, just to tell a Kimberly story a little bit, Kimberly leads the dream team that develops e-learning training. Imagined is a methodology she and her team use. And, in our industry, developing e-learning takes days and months and years, and we've done it, right? I remember last week, Kimberly was able to develop 2 e-learning products, 2 days back to back, right? So rapid development, and let the air kind of see it and breathe on it and improve on it. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. So I think you are a success story right there, Kimberly. Well,
thank you. And, in those cases, I think it's helpful to know that there are levels of detail that, you get to as you take those steps. So as you're building your portfolio, as you're adding to your portfolio, it gets better every layer of edits you add. So you have to start somewhere. And as you begin to get feedback from people who see it, you make little improvements here and there. And the next thing you know, you do have something you can be really proud of. But it all starts with that foundational level of just getting the information out there and just sharing something with the world.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So, Gabe, when's the right time to develop your portfolio?
When is the right time? So I would just say the right time is right now. Just do it right now. So I want to kind of maybe wrap it up by saying, when we talk about portfolio, we're talking about an online platform. So there are many tools out there. So, I know one of the tools that many people use for their portfolio is Wix, W-I-X. So, if I'm endorsing a product, so be it. There may be other tools. You can just look online, what are portfolio development tools. I'll just get one of those free accounts, just like we can get a free Zoom account and you can begin hosting meetings. So you can get one of those right away and see what work you have that can be put on portfolio and be tweaked. So I'll just say, begin now, because you can do it freely, and you can have people, critique and make it better. So I would just say, now is the time, if you are interested in getting your story out and some of the work you've done on display, so that you can attract the right kind of people, whether it is employers or a gig opportunity, or it is attracting maybe some talents. You want them to volunteer with you or work with you. So it does wonders. It kind of gives you a sense of pride as well. So.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to open it up for questions really quick, if you don't mind, Gabe. Does anyone have questions, or maybe you've started a portfolio or you're looking to update your portfolio and you've had some thoughts? Anyone would like to kind of hear from our expert here while we have him? You can either put it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and just speak with us. So
as you monitor the chat, I would say, I like our audience to think in terms of, barriers. I don't have the tools, maybe I'm taking this training class and I need to finish it. And then after I'm done, with this training class, and I can develop portfolio. So I think that example I gave you when I was taking that class, I was really struggling in that class. There are people who knew e-learning, who knew programming better than I did. So what really helped me was to have that professor who really needed it, because I saw an opportunity where this professor was traveling from Tallahassee, Florida to Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress on whatever it is he was lobbying. And I knew his students did not have a teacher when he was away. And so for me to say, hey, let me do this for you, and I had no clue how to do it, except when I begin to do something, how when you begin to do it, the details will come to you. Some people have to have all the facts and all the information, all the details before they begin. I'm the guy who just begins to walk, and then it comes to me. So I think this conversation is more about courage. It's not going to explode. If you think people are going to criticize you, send it to Kimberly, send it to me, send it to Ramia, send it to our team, and we can put a lot of A+ on it, and then you get the courage to get going. So if no, Kimberly, any questions, any comments so far from the audience? Or
I have not seen any in the chat yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I think if that's the case, since we have an audience that may be monitoring this remotely in the future, we'll just invite those of you who are, attending this real life or later on. You can always, send us comments, your experiences, and any assistance you need. We are always open to helping to fine-tune your portfolio. Even if you are a musician, what do I know about music? Well, just give us a try. We have friends in high places who are musically inclined, and we can have them provide inputs. So with that, if no questions, no comments, it means we really thoroughly answered every question. But if, sometimes I have no questions on the moment, and then 5 minutes later or 5 hours later, I think of something. How come I didn't think of that question then? Well, that's okay. You are not alone. It happens to me as well. So when that question, comment comes your way, send it to us. You know how to reach us, and we'll be happy to send out responses.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for being here with us today. We really appreciate your participation and your support, and we hope that you learned something, or at least were inspired to just go out and try it. Try any of these portfolio tips we learned today. So thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Ramia, for your help in hosting, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Yes. So I want to thank everyone. Kimberly, thank you. All our attendees for making the time on such a short notice. I do want to make a shameless plug. On the ICAT learning management system, we have a kind of more like a learning imagined for portfolio development. So A recording of this presentation will be there, kind of more like as an intro, and some of the how-tos will be on that site. You'll have some articles, some examples. All kinds of resources are available free of charge to you. So make sure you ask us for the link for the fully developed portfolio development resource page that Kimberly and Mo and the whole ICAT's dream team developed. So this presentation will be part of that. And we look forward to more interactions with you to empower you to have an increasingly and continuously improved portfolio. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.